Argentina's behaviour during and after.
I find it hard to watch Fernandez.
Spain were the deserved winners.
Argentina and their resilience and their ability to come back from difficult situations. But they came into the final with no real intention of playing football. They wanted to disrupt.
Us against the rest of the world mentality.
There's the World Cup final the world watched, and then there's the one the players themselves couldn't stop talking about the second the cameras should have cut away. Because in the minutes after that trophy went up, something happened that almost never happens in this sport. The legends stopped giving safe answers. The pundits stopped protecting anyone. And one after another, teammates of the men involved, icons who've won everything there is to win, looked dead into a camera and said the thing everyone watching at home was already thinking, but was too polite to say out loud. They didn't just tell you who won. They told you exactly what Spain did to Argentina for 90 suffocating minutes, and exactly what Argentina did to themselves the moment it stopped going their way. And once you hear it all lined up, back to back, in their own words, you'll realize the broadcast only ever showed you half of what actually happened out there. So forget the highlights package. Forget the version FIFA wants this final remembered as. Here's the real story of Spain versus Argentina, straight from the people who were standing close enough to see it happen. I'm not asking you to take my word for any of this. I'm handing you the microphone the football world already grabbed for itself. Every reaction coming up is on record, and when you stack them side by side, they stop sounding like scattered opinions from scattered people. They start sounding like one unanimous verdict nobody can argue with. Here's the box score, fast, before we get into what actually matters. Spain 1, Argentina 0, decided deep into extra time. Argentina, the reigning world champions, with Messi still somehow pulling every string at 39, did not manage a single shot on target in 120 minutes. Nearly 50 fouls whistled, 4 yellow cards against them, and in the dying seconds of normal time, one of their midfielders was sent off for a reckless, studs-up lunge that could have ended a teenager's tournament on the spot. That's the scoreline. What happened underneath it is the part almost nobody's actually talking about. First, the man who has never once softened a headline in his entire career. No hedge, no diplomacy, he looked at Argentina's 0 shots on target and said it plainly. Football won today. A team that spent the match trying to provoke instead of play finally got exactly what it deserved. When a man like that calls you weak, that's not an opinion, that's a diagnosis. Then came the sharpest tactical mind in the room, and this is the part I need you to actually hear, because it flips the entire story on its head. He wasn't watching the shoving matches. He was mesmerized by something quieter and far more brutal. Every single time Spain lost the ball, all 11 players moved as one to win it back within 3 passes. Every time, without exception. He called the discipline of it remarkable. And here's the detail casual fans miss completely. When a game looks boring, you're usually watching the wrong team. You're watching the team with the ball, not the team strangling the life out of the game without it. Sit with that for a second, because it changes everything. This wasn't a physical Argentina side unlucky against a decent Spain team. This was a machine, built so completely that the reigning world champions were never once allowed to breathe, let alone hurt them. Next, the redemption story nobody saw coming a year ago. A former England international, now a leading pundit, pointed straight at Spain's midfield general, a player people had already written off after a horror knee injury, and called him, without hesitation, the single best midfielder of the entire tournament. He reminded everyone that his own manager had predicted this exact comeback months in advance. A European title, a Ballon d'Or, a career-threatening injury, and now a World Cup, as the first player from his club to ever captain a side to it. The manager called it. The player went out and delivered it. Then the coach himself let the real secret out, without a shred of arrogance. The entire game plan, he admitted afterward, was built around exactly one thing: shutting down the greatest player alive through pure collective sacrifice, not through any single hero. And then he dropped the line that should terrify every future opponent. If it hadn't been for Argentina's goalkeeper standing on his head all night, Spain would have won by a lot more. Not a boast, just the stat sheet talking. Now here's where it turns ugly. Because the footage doesn't lie, and it doesn't let anyone spin their way out of this. As Spain's bench sprinted onto the pitch to celebrate, one Argentina defender threw a punch straight into a Spanish midfielder's chest. The Spaniard turned and squared up. A teammate stepped in to pull them apart, and that's exactly when it exploded. A different Argentina player grabbed him by the throat, hauled him to the ground, then knocked down a second Spanish player who hadn't laid a hand on anyone. Their own manager sprinted across the pitch like a man trying to put out a fire with his bare hands. On the far side of the chaos, another Argentina defender got right into a Spanish player's face, accusing Spain of whining to the referees all week long, as if being accurately called out in advance for rough play was somehow the actual crime here. Then, when Spain finally climbed the steps to lift the trophy, several Argentina players turned their backs on the entire ceremony. That's the exact moment the harshest voices in football stopped being diplomatic. One former hard man of the game, a player who genuinely loved the physical side of football his whole career, put it in 6 words flat: "You've got to take your medicine." And his point cut deeper than it sounds, because these were the same players doing this exact thing to England's players just days earlier. Dishing it out is one thing. Not being able to take it when it comes back is the worst look in this entire sport. Another legend went even harder on live television, calling the scenes a disgrace. And here's what made it actually land. He said it while praising Argentina's fight, while admitting he loves their competitiveness, while openly honoring what their talisman has meant to this game for 2 decades. This wasn't a hater talking. This was someone who genuinely respects them, saying flatly that they'd disgraced themselves. A former Premier League striker described the punches thrown as having absolutely no place in football, full stop. A former England goalkeeper needed just 2 words on air: disgusting behavior. And a former Manchester United forward called the continued aggression, long after the result was already decided, flat out embarrassing. But here's where I have to stop, because the footballers themselves didn't leave it there. And if we want the real truth, neither can we. Because the Argentina manager's tears after the final whistle were completely real. This is a man who'd won the whole thing 4 years earlier and came within 1 moment of ill discipline of doing it again. He said the loss hurt him down to his soul, admitted flat out that Spain were the better side and deserved every bit of it, and called his own talisman the greatest to ever step onto a football pitch, still doing this at 39 years old. He said he had no complaints about a single one of his players individually, then admitted, visibly breaking, that assembling a group like this one again might simply never happen for him. And the same pundit who told them to take their medicine also said this: stripped of their genius's magic for once, maybe Argentina were just a team with no other way to win, riding the edge of the rules because that's genuinely all they had left. Being physical, being cynical, playing right on the line, that's a tactic as old as the sport itself. It isn't automatically a crime. The real crime came after the whistle, when there was nothing left to fight for but pride, and they still couldn't find it. You can respect everything one man built over 20 years and still be appalled by the players standing beside him. Both things are true at once. The footballers held both, and if we're being honest, so should we. One more thing the players didn't let slide: the show around the show. FIFA bolted a full arena-scale halftime spectacle onto a World Cup final for the first time in history, stretching the break past 25 minutes with a lineup of global pop names. Asked live for his highlight of the entire spectacle, one England legend didn't even blink. His highlight was when it finally ended. He just wanted the football back. Another called the whole thing an anticlimax. The people who actually understand this game wanted 11 versus 11, not a concert wedged into the middle of the biggest 90 minutes on the planet. And there's a final layer of fairness worth adding. Several pundits argued that a different striker's goals in the meaningless third-place match shouldn't be weighed the same as what Argentina's own forward produced in a real final against the tightest defense in the tournament. Even in defeat, even after everything that unfolded, the football world kept finding new ways to honor what he'd done. That says something all on its own. So here's the verdict, stacked all the way up. Spain didn't just win, They built a suffocating, disciplined machine, all 11 players hunting the ball together as one, coached by a man who shut down the greatest player alive and still felt he left goals out there. Argentina didn't just lose, they were exposed completely, and the second the football finally beat them, some of their own players chose fists over acceptance. One legend said, "Football won." Another said the discipline was remarkable. Another said, "Take your medicine." Three more said, "Disgrace, disgusting, embarrassing." And through actual tears, their own manager said the only honest thing a beaten man could say, they were better. That's the reality. When the winners, the losers, and every single neutral legend watching all tell you the exact same story, it stops being an opinion. It's just what happened. So tell me straight, which reaction hit you hardest? The cold "football won" verdict, the "take your medicine" line, or a grown man in tears admitting his own team lost fair and square? Drop it below. I'll be reading every single one. And if you want the full tournament retrospective next, every hero, every villain, one last look at all of it, that video's coming right after this one.